6 a.m. Christmas morning. The doorbell rang like an alarm. I was hanging my mother's only glass ornament in the lobby of my apartment. My stepmother burst in and attacked me right under the yellow lights. My father just watched, holding his coffee. That attack was just bait. They wanted the apartment, my VA loan, and my honor. I thought I left the war behind me. It just followed me home, wearing familiar faces. My name is Kaylee Johnston. It was 6 a.m., Christmas morning. The world outside the Rook Tower was supposed to be silent, wrapped in that blue-gray light that only happens when the city is holding its breath, waiting for permission to celebrate. But in my hallway, the building's heating system was kicking on, a low metallic groan that vibrated through the floorboards. It was the only sound for a moment. Too quiet. I stood in my socks in the small entryway of apartment 1204, a coffee mug warming my hands, looking at the artificial tree I'd set up in the lobby alcove just outside my door. It was a compromise with the building management, a small gesture of holiday spirit for the 12th floor. I'd just hung the only ornament that mattered. That's when the doorbell rang. It wasn't a polite tap. It was a sustained, angry buzz, an electric scream that ripped the quiet morning apart. A jolt went through me, hot and familiar. I put my coffee mug down on the entryway table. I didn't need to look through the peephole, but I did anyway. The distorted fisheye lens showed exactly what I expected, what I had been dreading for a week. Marla Voss, my stepmother. Her shadow filled the frame, impatient, vibrating with a self-righteous energy I knew better than my own pulse. I took one breath, held it, and let it out slow. Steel yourself. Johnston. I turned the lock. I didn't even get the deadbolt fully retracted before the door slammed inward. It hit the wall stop with a sharp crack, the sound of splintering wood. She was already moving. Marla didn't say Merry Christmas. She didn't say hello. Her eyes, cold and assessing, skipped right over me and locked onto the tree. She saw it, the delicate sphere of Venetian glass, deep blue with gold filigree, that my mother had bought in 1999. It was the only piece of my mother, Elaine, that I had left. It was hanging on the highest branch, catching the soft yellow light. Marla's face tightened. The carefully constructed mask of holiday benevolence she wore for the public collapsed, revealing the raw entitlement beneath. "What did I tell you about digging up ghosts?" she hissed. Her handbag, a heavy, structured leather satchel with a thick metal buckle, swung off her shoulder. It wasn't a panicked slap. It was a calculated strike, a weighted pendulum aimed directly at my head. I brought my left forearm up, fast, instinct. 8 years in the Air Force, working on avionics in hostile territory, teaches you to block first. The heavy buckle of the bag, cold and solid, connected with my ulna bone. A sharp, radiating sting shot up my arm. I knew it would be a deep purple bruise by noon. The force of the blow staggered me, but I held my ground. Behind me, the ornament swung wildly on its new steel hook. "Marla, don't overdo it." Peter's voice, my father. He was standing 3 feet behind her in the hallway, buffered by the cold draft from the elevators, holding his own steaming travel mug. He didn't move to stop her. He didn't step forward. He just watched the steam rise from his cup, his eyes avoiding mine, focused on some neutral point on the wall above my head. The sickly sweet smell of his hazelnut coffee mixed with the artificial pine scent of the lobby tree, and the combination made me want to throw up. Marla tried to push past me, to get into my apartment. "I'm cleaning up this morbid display." I didn't raise my voice. I planted my feet, shifted my weight. I caught her right arm, the one still holding the weaponized handbag. My grip was better than hers. Her expensive wool coat bunched under my fingers. Her wrist felt small and brittle. "Marla," I said. My voice was low, barely a whisper, but in the pressurized quiet of the hallway, it cut like a blade. "Get out." It was the sound of the door slamming, the impact, the sharp hiss of her voice, down the hall. Apartment 12B, Mrs. Ellery. Her door cracked open, the security chain catching. I saw a sliver of her face, her gray hair in pink rollers. her eyes wide with alarm and curiosity. She saw me, arm extended, holding my stepmother back. She saw Marla, whose face was now mottled with crimson rage. She saw Peter, my father, standing uselessly in the background, a silent, consenting witness. Her eyes met mine for maybe half a second. Then the door clicked shut. The deadbolt slid home. Collective silence, the civilized, unspoken agreement of neighbors to not get involved. That sound, that soft click of the lock, hurt almost as much as the handbag. Marla wrenched her arm free, disgusted. She pointed a gloved finger at the tree. "That is a family tree, Kaylee. For the whole family. You don't get to monopolize it with your sadness." Her voice was rising, echoing in the small, carpeted space. She was performing now, playing to the closed doors, to the audience she assumed was listening. "This apartment is in my name," I said. The words were flat, concrete, indisputable. I had the deed. I had the VA loan. I had the DD 214 and the scars from the service that paid for that loan. "The tree is my property. You are trespassing." That was the wrong thing to say. The mask of civility vaporized. "Your name?" She spat the words. "You think you earned this? You used your father's history, his stability, to get this loan, this building. You owe us. You owe him for this." The accusation hung in the air, tearing the fragile paper of the holiday into tiny, useless pieces. Owe you? I had spent the last 8 years pulling shrapnel out of F-16 engines in the Kandahar dust while she picked out China patterns and managed my father's decline. But I didn't say that. I didn't have to. I kept my eyes locked on hers, my left hand, the one she couldn't see, the one already throbbing from the impact, was at my wrist. I double-tapped the side of my tactical watch. A small, silent vibration against my skin confirmed it. Audio recording initiated. At the same time, it sent a silent ping to the cloud, time-stamping the activation and triggering a mandatory save sequence from the hallway camera I'd installed 2 months ago, the one legally pointed only at my own door, the one Peter and Marla thought was just a high-tech doorbell. Down the hall, by the elevators, the holiday security guard, Cole Mercer, looked up from his desk. He was a young guy, probably just trying to get through a double shift to pay for tuition. He half stood, his hand on his radio, his face a mask of confusion. He looked at us, then at my father, who looked like a respectable homeowner, then back at Marla, who looked like an outraged wife. He was torn. I could see the conflict in his eyes. A family dispute versus building protocol. He stayed put, paralyzed by the ambiguity. He didn't want the paperwork. No one ever wants the paperwork. Marla saw I wasn't backing down. She saw I wasn't crying. She hated that most. She hated the discipline. She lunged. This time it wasn't the bag. It was her body weight. She shoved me hard, both hands flat against my chest. "You ungrateful little bitch!" I wasn't ready for the shove. I stumbled back. My heel caught on the edge of the entryway rug. My shoulder hit the tree. The whole thing shuddered. The lights flickered. The ornament, my mother's ornament, swung violently on its hook. It hit the drywall behind it. It didn't shatter. The old Venetian glass was thick, but I heard it, a faint, sickening sound, a tick. I looked, a hairline fracture, a tiny spider web of broken glass, had appeared near the delicate metal cap. The rage was instant. It was cold. It came up from my feet, a freezing, clarifying wave that settled behind my eyes. It was the same cold precision I felt when lining up a diagnostic sequence on a failing targeting pod. Everything else faded. I pulled my phone from the back pocket of my sweatpants. My hands were perfectly steady. My thumb found the icon. I dialed 911. "Kaylee, don't you dare!" Peter started, finally taking a step forward, his voice a low warning. Marla just laughed. It was a short, ugly, triumphant sound. "Go ahead," she said, pulling her wool coat straight, regaining her composure. "Call them? Tell them what? My father is here." She gestured to Peter. who now looked deeply uncomfortable. "He's my witness. He'll tell them you're unstable. He'll tell them you've been erratic since you got back. He'll tell them you attacked me." She smiled, a thin, satisfied smile. She knew she had the leverage. The concerned, respectable father, the hysterical, unstable veteran daughter. It was a perfect story. The operator's voice came on the line, tinny and calm. 911, what is your emergency? I kept my eyes locked on Marla. I didn't look at my father. I couldn't. I am at the Rook Tower, apartment 1204. My stepmother has just assaulted me in the hallway, and she and my father are refusing to leave my property. Marla's smile faltered. I wasn't whispering. I wasn't shouting. I was reporting, giving a situation report. Peter's face went pale. He grabbed her arm. "Marla, that's enough. We're going. Now." He started pulling her toward the elevator, his coffee cup still clutched in his other hand. Marla was still yelling, sputtering about ghosts and disrespect, and how I was ruining Christmas, but the sound was muffled as they moved away. I stood in the doorway and watched them go. I didn't lower the phone. "Ma'am, are you still there?" the operator asked. "Yes, they are leaving now." "Do you require medical assistance?" "No, but I need to file a report." I watched until the elevator doors closed, sealing them away. I gave the operator my name, Kaylee Johnston. I described the assault with the handbag. I described the shove. I described my father as a passive witness who did not intervene. I finished the call. I stepped back inside my apartment. I closed the heavy door. I turned the primary lock. Then I engaged the top deadbolt, the high-security one I had installed myself, the one Marla didn't know about. I leaned my forehead against the cool, solid wood of the door. My hands were shaking, a fine, uncontrollable tremor that started in my wrists, but my mind was perfectly, terrifyingly clear. The war wasn't over. It had just moved stateside. I walked back to the tree. I carefully lifted the ornament off its hook. The crack was visible, a deep flaw that threatened the whole sphere. I had stopped calculating defense. I was beginning to calculate the offense. The attack this morning wasn't spontaneous. It wasn't a holiday flare-up. It was a failure of intelligence on my part. The signs were all there. I'm trained to see patterns, to connect disparate data points into a coherent threat assessment. But I was looking at the desert. I wasn't looking at my own family. The operation against me began 3 months ago. It started the moment I closed on the apartment. I came back to Cleveland after 8 years away, thinking I could build a life near the lake, near the only home I'd really known. I'd spent my enlistment saving every dime, guarding my credit. My VA loan entitlement was the one clean, powerful thing I had earned. It got me this place in the Rook Tower, 2 bedrooms, a view of the water if I craned my neck. It was mine. The deed read, Kaylee Johnston, an unmarried woman. That, I realize now, was the problem. The first probe was digital, an email, about a month after I moved in. It looked official, formatted perfectly. Cleveland Municipal Tax Authority, action required to verify homestead exemption. It listed my new address. It asked me to confirm my details, including my social security number, via a secure portal. I'm in analytics. I don't click links. I pulled the header. I traced the IP. It was clumsy. It resolved to a residential broadband connection in Westlake, the suburb where Marla and Peter live. I deleted the email. I upgraded the firewall on my router. I didn't confront them. I filed it away as Marla being Marla, a clumsy, petty attempt to snoop. That was mistake number 1. The second probe was physical. A week later, Peter, he came alone, which should have been the first red flag. He always sent Marla in first for the heavy fighting. He was the cleanup crew, the reasonable one. He brought coffee, the same sickly hazelnut blend he was holding in the hallway this morning. Kaylee, this place is really something, he said, walking around the living room, touching the walls. Solid. They built this right. He sat on the couch, didn't take his coat off. Listen, he said, leaning forward, trying to sound paternal. I'm glad you're in a secure building. It's safe. But what if something happens? An emergency? What if you're traveling for this new job? I really think I should have a spare key, just in case, for family. I was standing by the kitchen counter. I didn't hesitate. No. I didn't explain. I didn't justify it. The word just hung in the air between us. His smile didn't just fade. It curdled. It was the look of a man who expected compliance and received a locked door. He saw the new high-security deadbolt I'd installed, the one above the standard lock. He didn't comment on it, but he saw it. "Well," he said, standing up, his coffee untouched. "Just an idea." He was gone 30 seconds later. That was the second signal. They were probing physical security. The third was the escalation. When the probes failed, they tried a direct assault on the asset. 2 months ago, I was at work, at Torchline. My phone buzzed, not a text, a secure alert from my credit union, the one I'd used since basic training. Fraud alert. Co-ownership verification failed. I was in the break room. I called the bank's fraud line immediately. My heart was a cold stone in my chest. "Ms. Johnston," the representative said, "we flagged an automated attempt to add a co-owner to your primary mortgage, account ending in 4412. "Who?" "The name listed on the application was J. Voss," the agent said. "It was filed through an online portal. It failed because the secondary social security number provided did not match any known identifiers for that name." J. Voss. Marla's first name isn't Jane. It's Jennifer. Jennifer Voss. She'd tried to add herself to my mortgage, to my apartment. She'd tried to use a slight variation of her name, probably hoping an automated system would approve it. I told the bank it was fraudulent. I locked my accounts. I put alerts on all 3 credit bureaus. They weren't just snooping. They were trying to take it. The bank fraud attempt was the moment I installed the camera. I read my lease agreement, front to back. I was permitted a personal video doorbell security device. As long as its field of vision was restricted to my own entryway, I bought the best one on the market, high definition, night vision, cloud backup, and I linked the instant-on notifications to my watch, the watch I'd tapped this morning. I also went downstairs and spoke to the building manager, Mr. Kellen. He's a thin man who always looks stressed. He wants a quiet building. "Mr. Kellen?" I said, standing in his office. "I need to file a security report. I have family members who I believe are attempting to gain unauthorized access to my unit." He immediately looked uncomfortable. He fiddled with a pen. "Ms. Johnston, I'm sure it's just a family misunderstanding. The holidays, you know." "It's not a misunderstanding," I said, my voice flat. "It was an attempt to commit bank fraud using my address. I want it on record, in your building log, that Peter Blake and Jennifer Voss are not permitted access to my apartment without my being physically present. They are not to be given a key. They are not to be let in by staff." He saw I wasn't emotional. I was giving a field report. He typed. He printed a copy of the incident report. "Of course, Ms. Johnston, resident security is our priority, but I do hope you can resolve this amicably. Keep things calm." I took the report. "Calm is over, Mr. Kellen. Now I'm just documenting." With the digital and physical avenues blocked, Marla started the public relations campaign. Her Facebook page, a picture of her and Peter, standing in front of the Rook Tower's main entrance, smiling, her arm linked through his. The caption, "So excited to be moving into the family's new downtown apartment. It's such a blessing to have everyone back together. Family reunion, Cleveland roots blessed." My phone lit up with messages from aunts and cousins. "Congratulations on the new place with your dad. How wonderful you're all reconciling." She was building a narrative, seeding the idea that this was a shared asset, that we were one big, happy family. It was a classic psychological operation. Establish a public consensus, so that when I denied it, I looked like the crazy, selfish one. I was the one breaking up the family. I didn't reply to any of them. I took a screenshot of the post and saved it to a secure folder. The final piece of intelligence was the one I ignored. It came from my new job. Torchline sends out weekly security memos. 2 weeks ago. The subject line was Threat Advisory, Familial Fraud, Targeting Service Disabled, and Recently Discharged Veterans. I remember reading the first paragraph. It detailed a rising trend of relatives and caregivers using coercion, manipulation, or identity theft to seize VA benefits, bank accounts, and properties. I read it. I thought, that's horrible. And then I archived the email. I archived it because I didn't want to believe my situation was that. I wanted to believe it was just family drama. I didn't want to believe my father would be party to a criminal enterprise against his own daughter. I miscategorized the threat. I put it in the personal box, not the security box. That was the mistake that got me attacked. And then there was the ornament. My mother, Elaine, died 12 years ago, long before Marla had sunk her hooks into my father. Before she died, when the cancer was bad, she gave me a small, locked box. "This is for you, Kaylee," she'd said. "Don't open it until you are truly on your own, and don't ever let her touch it." When I closed on the apartment, I opened the box. Inside was the ornament, the deep blue Venetian glass, and a small folded note. All it said was, "The ornament holds the key, Hearth and Glen." Hearth and Glen Financial, the small, old-world bank downtown my mother had always used. She had a safe deposit box. I'd held the ornament in my hand. I could feel something small shift inside, a tiny, metallic weight. I hadn't opened it. I'd just moved back. I was exhausted. I wanted, just for one Christmas, to pretend, to be normal. I wanted to hang my mother's ornament on a tree and have a quiet holiday. Opening that box, finding the key, going to the bank. That felt like a final declaration of war. It was choosing a side. I wasn't ready. Marla must have known about the box. She must have suspected the ornament was more than just glass. That's what she was trying to get this morning. She wasn't just offended by the memory. She was trying to seize the key. Last night, Christmas Eve, I was watching the snow fall over the city. My phone lit up. A text from Marla. "I see you're putting up decorations in the lobby. Just remember, what belongs to the family must be shared. We will be there tomorrow morning at 6 to discuss this." Shared. Not your apartment, the family's. I didn't reply. I looked at the ornament, sitting on my table. The old hook was thin, unreliable. I was afraid it would fall. I went to my old maintenance kit from the Air Force. I found a small, hardened steel S-hook, heavy gauge, rated for 20 pounds. I carefully removed the flimsy wire and threaded the steel hook through the ornament's metal cap. This morning, I hung it on the highest branch of the lobby tree. That steel hook is the only reason the ornament isn't a pile of blue dust right now. When Marla shoved me and I hit the tree, the hook held the branch. It didn't bend. It didn't break. It held fast. It only allowed the ornament to crack against the wall. A small, deliberate act of preparation. I looked at the fractured glass in my hand. The data points were no longer separate. The IP trace, the J. Voss application, the spare key request, the Facebook post, the HR email. This wasn't an argument. It was a planned extraction. And I was the target. The lock turned with a heavy, final sound. The top bolt, the one I had installed, slid home. My hands had stopped shaking. The adrenaline was gone, replaced by a cold, clear, operational focus. This apartment was no longer a home. It was a forward operating base, and the perimeter had been breached. I went to my desk, the scanner whirred to life in the quiet room, one document at a time. The deed to apartment 1204, the mortgage contract, the final closing statement, the VA loan guarantee. I scanned every single page, front and back, in high resolution. I created 3 separate encrypted archive files. The first, I saved to my local encrypted hard drive. The second, I uploaded to a secure private cloud server, buried deep in a project folder associated with my Torchline Analytics account. The third, I transferred to a nondescript thumb drive, which I then taped to the inside of the metal chassis of my old disconnected desktop computer tower. Redundancy. Never keep a single copy of anything important. The perimeter was secure. Now, I needed to check for internal breaches. I logged into my credit union account. I bypassed the balance page and went straight to the account settings, to the access and security logs. There it was, not just the J. Voss attempt from last month. There were 2 new entries. December 22nd. Password reset attempt, failed. December 23rd. Secondary verification, failed. The system had logged the IP address of the machine making the requests. I ran a trace. It was the same IP address from the phishing email, the residential broadband server in Westlake, Peter's machine. My father. He wasn't just a passive witness. He wasn't just a bystander holding a coffee cup. He was the digital accomplice. He was the one feeding Marla information, the one trying to break down my digital firewall so she could execute the fraud. The realization didn't land with a crash. It landed like a sniper's bullet, a small, clean hole that clarified everything. He wasn't a victim. He was a co-conspirator. My phone felt heavy in my hand, but my fingers were steady. The next calls were procedural. First, the bank's fraud department. I reported the unauthorized access attempts, referencing the dates, the IP address, and the previous J. Voss incident. I gave them the police report number from the 911 call I had just made. My account was immediately placed on a high-security watch. No changes, no transfers, no address updates without a verbal password, and a multi-factor authentication code sent to my device. Next, the credit bureaus. All 3 of them, Equifax, TransUnion, Experian. I used the automated system, my voice flat and even. I believe I am a victim of identity theft. I placed an extended fraud alert and a full credit freeze on all 3 of my files. The digital gates were locked, barbed wire, and mined. No one could apply for a loan, a credit card, or a co-ownership agreement in my name without speaking to me directly. The digital perimeter was set. Now I needed command. I was an analyst and a mechanic. I was not a lawyer. I called the Veteran Affairs hotline. I navigated the holiday menu, the cheerful recorded voice grating on my nerves. I found the emergency line for veterans at risk. A human operator picked up. I gave her the sitrep. I am a recently discharged Air Force veteran. My VA loan is being targeted by family members, which has escalated to identity theft, attempted bank fraud, and a physical assault this morning. I have a Cleveland police report number. The operator's bored holiday tone vanished. Hold one moment. Sergeant Johnston, I'm connecting you to our legal advocacy partner. A new voice came on the line, sharp, awake. Noah Rivas. I'm an attorney with the Vets Justice Project. What's your situation? Johnston? He used my last name. The VA must have passed my file. I gave him the report, same as I'd give a commanding officer. Clean, chronological, the move-in date, the phishing email from the Westlake IP, the spare key request from Peter, the fraudulent J. Voss bank application, Marla's public Facebook post claiming family ownership, the 6 a.m. assault, the 911 call, the cracked ornament, the passive witness role of my father. There was a long silence on the line. It wasn't a shocked silence. It was the sound of a professional assessing a battlefield. Okay, Johnston, Rivas said. His voice was calm, which calmed me. First, you did good. You called 911. You got a police report number. That is the single most important action you could have taken. It starts the clock. It makes this official. It stops being a family dispute and starts being a crime. What's next? I asked. Next, you do nothing. Today is Christmas. Tomorrow, the 26th. The courts are closed for the observed holiday. You are in no immediate physical danger. Your locks are secure. So you go black. You are a black hole. Do not engage. Do not answer their calls. Do not reply to their texts. Do not post a single word on social media. Am I clear? Clear? Marla wants a fight. Peter wants to calm you down and gaslight you. We give them neither. We give them absolute silence. They will get nervous. They will make more mistakes. Your only job right now is to document. We are not in a family drama. We are in a property dispute that has escalated to assault. We will treat it as such. I am drafting a formal cease and desist letter and a trespass warning, which I will have served to both of them on December 27th. Meet me at my office, 10 a.m., the day after tomorrow. Bring all your documentation, the deed, the loan, the screenshots, the police report number. I'll be there. And Johnston? He added. Yes? Stay sharp. He hung up. My next call was to Mr. Kellen, the building manager. He answered, his voice tight with holiday stress. Ms. Johnston, I heard there was a disturbance. The police were here. Mr. Kellen? Yes. A police report has been filed for assault. I am calling, on my attorney's request, to ensure that you preserve the last 24 hours of security footage from the 12th floor elevator bank and the main lobby entrance. The word attorney worked like a charm. Yes, of course, Ms. Johnston, preserve. I can do that immediately. Our system overwrites every 48 hours, but I can pull the archive for that time frame right now. I will need a copy of that footage, I said. Ah, he hesitated. For that, building policy is strict. I'll need a formal request from the police officer who took your report, or a subpoena. I can't just hand it over. Resident privacy. I expected it. Understood. Just ensure it is not deleted. The police will be in contact. I hung up. I opened a new file on my computer. Witnesses, text, I typed. 1. Mrs. Ellery, Apt 12B. Visual witness to confrontation. 2. Cole Mercer, security guard, holiday shift. Visual and audio witness to confrontation. Failure to intervene. 3. Main lobby receptionist, AM shift. Witness to Peter Blake and Marla Voss's entry. I saved the file in the same encrypted archive. I had done all the procedural tasks. The adrenaline was long gone, leaving behind the deep, cold ache in my forearm where the bag had connected. I sat on the couch, the silence of the apartment feeling heavy. I picked up the cracked ornament. I held it to the light. The fracture was a spider web, but it wasn't random. It emanated from a single point near the metal cap. I'm trained to look for hairline flaws in engine components, for points of structural failure, and I saw one. The crack had revealed it, a seam. The ornament wasn't one solid piece of glass. The metal cap, the part I always thought was just decorative, was attached to an internal mechanism. The glass sphere was a shell. I ran my thumbnail along the newly visible seam. The force of the impact against the wall had dislodged a tiny, almost invisible latch, one that had been perfectly hidden within the gold filigree pattern. My fingers, calloused from years of working with fine wires and avionics, found the latch. I pressed it. There was a soft, mechanical click. The metal cap, with my heavy steel hook still attached, lifted. It came away from the glass sphere, not as a broken piece, but as a perfectly fitted lid. The inside was hollow, lined with faded blue velvet. Nestled in that velvet was a small, tightly folded piece of paper, brown with age, and wrapped inside the paper was a tiny, ornate brass key. My hands were shaking again, but for a different reason. I carefully unfolded the paper, my mother's handwriting, elegant, strong, unmistakable. It wasn't a letter, it was just a note. Hearth and Glen Financial, 488B. My breath caught in my throat. 488B, a safe deposit box. This was what she was after. This was why Marla attacked the ornament. Not for the memory, not for the glass. She knew. She must have known my mother had a box. She was trying to get the key. The assault, the fraud, the attempt to seize the apartment. It was all secondary. The apartment was just the staging ground. They wanted this. They wanted whatever my mother had hidden away. This fight wasn't about a VA loan. It wasn't about a 2-bedroom apartment. It was about my mother's legacy. It was an attempt to erase the last secure thing she had left for me. The weight of the tiny key in my palm felt immense. I went to my computer. Hearth and Glen Financial. Still in business. Still in the old arcade building downtown. I called the number. A cheerful holiday greeting. Our offices are closed December 25th and December 26th in observance of the Christmas holiday. We will reopen for normal business on Friday, December 27th. I navigated the automated menu. I scheduled an appointment with the safe deposit vault manager, 9 a.m., December 27th, an hour before my meeting with Noah Rivas. I tucked the key and the note into a secure pocket in my wallet. I would not mention this to Noah. Not yet. This was my mother's. This was mine. I was placing the cracked, empty glass shell back on my desk when my phone buzzed. A text message. From Peter. Kaylee, this has gone too far. Let's sit down and talk, calmly. Attached to the text was a photograph. His hand, his thick fingers wrapped around that familiar insulated travel mug, the one he'd been holding in the hallway. Steam was rising from it. The backdrop was their pristine, white granite kitchen counter. It wasn't an apology. It was a summons. It was an assertion of control. We are the calm ones. You are the one who has gone too far. The picture of the coffee mug wasn't an olive branch. It was the same weapon of passivity he had wielded during the assault. It was the symbol of his compliance. I stared at the text. I looked at the police report number on my screen. I looked at the cracked, hollow ornament. I didn't reply. I took a screenshot of the message, complete with his phone number and the timestamp. I saved it to the evidence folder. Then I blocked his number. I didn't answer Peter's text. I didn't answer the subsequent 4 calls that came from his number, each routed silently to voicemail by the block I'd put in place. The silence from my end was a vacuum. And Marla, true to form, rushed to fill it with noise. Just after 1 p.m., after the police officer had come and gone, a tired, polite patrolman who took my statement with a neutral gaze and handed me a victim's rights pamphlet, I opened my laptop. I already knew what I would find. Marla's primary weapon had always been the narrative. When direct assault failed, she retreated to the one battlefield where she felt dominant, public opinion. Her Facebook page was open, the privacy set to public. She wanted an audience. There it was, a post from 11 a.m., just a few hours after the police left her house. It wasn't a picture of the tree, or my door. It was a soft focus photo of her and Peter from a few years ago, smiling at a charity gala, the picture of civic-minded stability. The text she'd written beneath it was a masterpiece of passive-aggressive martyrdom. "It is with the heaviest heart," she began, "that our family's Christmas has been ruined. We only wanted to celebrate together, to welcome Kaylee back into the fold after her difficult time away. We went to her new apartment this morning with coffee and gifts, only to be met with screaming and accusations. She became hostile, broke a precious family ornament, and then called the police on her own father. We are heartbroken, but we are praying for her stability." My fingers went cold. She broke the ornament. I called the police on my father. She was twisting the facts, painting me as the unstable veteran, the broken, ungrateful child. The comments section was the real payload. The flying monkeys had been activated. A cousin I hadn't seen in 6 years. "Marla, I am so sorry. This is what you get for trying to help. Some people are just ungrateful." An old neighbor from the Westlake house. "Peter is a saint to put up with that. She's been difficult since her mother passed. I'm praying for you both." Aunt Jean. "That's what happens when they come back from the military, all wound up. She needs help. Marla, you're a good mother for trying." It was a public execution. Every comment was a small, sharp knife, validating Marla's victimhood and cementing my instability. I was being tried and convicted in a kangaroo court of concerned family friends. I did not type a single word in response. I did not hit like or angry. I did exactly what I was trained to do when analyzing hostile propaganda. I documented it. I took a full-page screenshot of the entire post, including every single comment. I used a browser plugin that captured the URL and, critically, the exact timestamp of the capture. I saved the file to the encrypted drive. Evidence file SAR004 FBE post. Marla 1305 PNG. This wasn't a fight. This was discovery. My next stop was the city's public records portal. The 911 call. I entered the police report number. The system found the event log immediately. Assault. Event closed. I clicked the request for the associated audio file. It cost $7.50, a fee I happily paid. 5 minutes later, the MP3 file was in my inbox. I put on my headphones and pressed play. First, the operator's calm. 911, what is your emergency? Then my voice. It was strange hearing it. It was not the voice of someone hysterical. It was cold, low, precise. I am at the Rook Tower, apartment 1204. My stepmother has just assaulted me in the hallway. In the background, I could hear her. Marla, not the calm, heartbroken victim from the Facebook post. She was shrieking. The words were muffled, but the tone was pure venom. Ungrateful. Tell them. You're lying. And then I heard Peter. Marla, that's enough. We're going. Now. It was perfect. It was the entire, unvarnished truth. The audio file captured my calm report, her venomous rage, and his passive complicity. I saved the file. Evidence file 005 911 audio 0607.mp3. As I was labeling the file, a notification slid onto my screen. A private message from the encrypted messaging app I used. It was from a username I didn't recognize. Mrs. E12B. Mrs. Ellery, my neighbor. I clicked it. The message was short, typed with nervous punctuation. Miss Johnston, I saw it. This morning, I was at my peephole. I saw her swing that bag at you. I saw her shove you. I am so sorry I closed the door. I am 72 years old and my son-in-law is difficult. I did not want trouble. My heart, which had been a cold stone all day, warmed slightly. I typed back, Mrs. Ellery, you do not have to do anything. You are safe. But do you have a video doorbell, like mine? She replied instantly, yes, a small one. It records when there is motion. Can you do me a favor? Can you simply log in, download the video from approximately 6 a.m. this morning, and save it to your own computer? Just hold on to it. You don't need to give it to me. Just keep it safe. Can you do that? There was a long pause. Yes, I can do that. God bless you. Dear, I am praying for you. I closed the chat. I had a visual witness. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. The timeline was coming together, but there was a missing piece. Why now? Why this sudden, violent escalation? Another notification, a different platform, a burner account on a social media site, one I sometimes used for open-source intelligence gathering at work. A new follower, a new message. The account name was Rook Tower Night Watch. The message contained a single image file. No text. I clicked it. The picture was grainy, taken from a low angle, clearly from a cell phone. It was the lobby of my building. The timestamp in the corner was from 6 days ago, December 19th. It was Peter, my father. He was standing near the mailboxes, his back to the camera, and he was holding a small, red toolbox, the kind used for picking locks, a standard bump key and tension wrench kit. My blood went cold. I knew that Rook Tower, Night Watch, had to be Cole Mercer, the night guard, the one who had hesitated. This was his apology. This was his penance. He had seen Peter casing the building, trying to get in, a week before the assault. I opened my timeline document. I put the new data point in. 1. December 19th. Peter attempts physical access with a lockpick kit, presumably failed, thanks to my high-security deadbolt. 2. December 22nd. Peter attempts digital access via password reset, failed. 3. December 23rd. Peter and Marla attempt bank fraud. Voss, failed. 4. December 24th. Marla sends the text. We will be there at 6. A declaration of intent. 5. December 25th, 6 a.m., Marla, with Peter as backup, executes the physical assault. This wasn't a family dispute that ruined Christmas. This was the final, desperate act of a failed, months-long conspiracy. They had tried every other way to get into my apartment, to get onto my mortgage. When it all failed, they came in person, and when that failed, when I called the police and locked them out. Marla immediately launched the only campaign she had left, the smear campaign. As if on cue, my work email pinged. It was from my manager at Torchline Analytics. Subject: Social Media Policy. Kaylee, it read. Just a professional reminder. We are aware that you are handling a difficult personal matter. However, Torchline's Code of Conduct requires that employees do not engage in public, inflammatory disputes online, especially those that could be perceived as involving instability. Our clients trust our discretion. Please keep this matter on legal and private channels. Let me know if you need to take personal time. They had seen it, Marla's post, the comment section, the unstable veteran narrative. It was already threatening my job. I typed a one-sentence reply. Understood. I have no intention of engaging. It is being handled by my legal counsel. I sent the email. I went back to Marla's Facebook page. I was about to log off, to go dark as Noah had instructed. But something new had appeared. She had made another post. This one was even worse. She must have seen my complete silence as a victory. She was doubling down. Update, she wrote. To all our friends, it's worse than we thought. The heirloom she broke. It was her own mother's. The one, single ornament Elaine left her. She smashed it on the floor in a rage, and then tried to blame me. I am truly afraid for her. This is not the girl we know. I looked at the cracked, hollow ornament sitting on my desk. The key was long since removed. This lie was different. It was specific. It was cruel. And it was a fatal, tactical error. She had just, in a public forum, confirmed the ornament's significance. She had tied it directly to my mother. She had established its unique, irreplaceable value. I took another screenshot. Evidence files 006 FB post Marla 1410 PNG. As I was saving it, the page refreshed. Underneath her post, a new tag had appeared, a small gray box. This post has been flagged by users as potentially containing false or disputed information. Someone had reported it. Maybe Mrs. Ellery from 12B, maybe Cole from the night desk, maybe one of my own cousins who wasn't buying the story. It didn't matter. The narrative was no longer completely hers. I opened a new, secure email to Noah Rivas. I attached all 6 files, the 2 Facebook screenshots, the 911 audio file, the picture of Peter with the toolbox, the fraudulent bank attempt from last month, the original phishing email. Subject: Johnston. Kaylee. Evidence Packet 1. Body: Mr. Rivas. Per our conversation, here is the initial documentation. The public relations campaign has begun, as you predicted. His reply came back in less than 10 minutes. Johnston, this is excellent. The 911 audio and the toolbox photo are game changers. The Facebook posts are a gift. The louder she screams, the more she reveals her motive. She's not behaving like a victim. She's behaving like someone who just failed to steal something. Do not reply. Do not engage. You are a rock. Let her break herself against you. I will see you on the 27th. We are no longer just filing for a restraining order. We are filing for damages. I closed the email. I logged out of my social media. I logged out of my work accounts. I powered down my laptop. I silenced my phone and plugged it into the charger in the kitchen. For the next 24 hours, I was going offline. The battle was over for today. I had held the line. I needed to conserve energy. The next move would be at Hearth and Glen Financial. The next move was my mother's. December 25th was a vacuum, a day of absolute silence. I had followed Noah Rivas's directive. I went black. No calls, no texts, no social media. The digital storm Marla had created was raging somewhere outside my walls. But inside apartment 1204, the only sounds were the heating system and the distant, muted wail of sirens on the streets below. I ate protein bars. I drank water. I cleaned my service weapon. I waited. The observed holiday. December 26th was just as quiet. The world was shut down, digesting its holiday feast, sleeping off the celebration I had been denied. The quiet was a strategic advantage. It gave me time to think, to process the intel, and to wait for them to make another mistake. But I was wrong. The next move didn't come from them. It came from my own perimeter. At 7 p.m., there was a knock on my door. It was a soft knock, tentative, not the angry, demanding buzz of Marla. I went to the peephole. My hand was resting on the high-security deadbolt. It was Cole Mercer, the security guard. He wasn't in his uniform. He was wearing a gray hoodie and a baseball cap, and he looked about 15 years old. He was staring at my door, his hands shoved deep in his pockets, his shoulders slumped. He looked ashamed. I opened the door, but only as far as the security chain would allow, a 4-inch gap of neutral territory. "Miss Johnston," he said, and his voice was low. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He was staring at the carpet. I just wanted to come by. Off the clock. I wanted to apologize. I waited. I said nothing. "Yesterday," he continued, "I froze. When I looked up, I saw your father. He looked respectable, and she was yelling about family. We're trained to de-escalate, to call the police for violence, but to try and mediate domestic disputes. I categorized it wrong. I hesitated, and by the time I stood up, your father was, well, I couldn't see anything. I am sorry. That was not protocol." I kept my voice flat. "You saw her assault me, Cole." "Yes, ma'am." He finally looked up. His eyes were clear, just stressed. "I saw her swing the bag. I saw her push you, and I pulled the local backup." He pulled his hand from his pocket. He was holding a tiny black micro SD card. "The footage I sent you before, the picture of your father with the toolbox, that was from my phone, when I was doing rounds last week. I knew he was up to something, but this," he held up the card, "this is from the official hallway camera. Management is cheap, the cloud storage. It loops every 24 hours. It's mostly for show, but the actual hardware unit in the ceiling saves to a local card. As an internal backup, I pulled it this morning, before the loop erased yesterday's file." He slid the tiny card through the 4-inch gap. It fell onto my entryway mat. "The resolution is better," he said. It shows everything. Good luck, Miss Johnston." He turned and walked away before I could say thank you. I closed the door. I shot the deadbolt. My hands were not shaking. I picked up the SD card. I slid it into the adapter and plugged it into my laptop. He was right. The video was not the grainy, compressed file from the cloud. This was high definition, 30 frames per second. It was clinical. I watched it. 6:06 a.m. I opened the door. Marla's voice, sharp and clear. "What did I tell you about digging up ghosts?" The swing of the bag, the impact on my arm, my hand catching her wrist. And then I saw it, the part I had missed. Down the hall, Cole Mercer stands up from his desk. His head turns toward the disturbance. And my father, Peter Blake, still holding his hazelnut coffee, takes 2 precise, calm steps to his left. He doesn't turn around. He doesn't look at Cole. He just moves. His new position, standing slightly behind Marla, perfectly, completely blocked Cole's line of sight, and it completely blocked the hallway camera's view of my doorway. He wasn't a passive witness. He was an active shield. He had seen the guard stand up, and he had intentionally moved to provide cover for Marla's assault. He wasn't just watching, he was participating. I saved the file. Evidence file, a 007 HD hallway Peter Block, MP4. My blood felt like ice water. This changed everything. As I was labeling the file, I heard another sound, a soft, scraping noise from the bottom of my door. I went over. A single, folded sheet of lined notebook paper had been slid underneath. I picked it up. It was from Mrs. Ellery, in apartment 12B. Her handwriting was frail, looping, and blue. "Miss Johnston," it began, I am 72 years old, and I live with my son-in-law. He is a difficult man. I cannot go to a courthouse. I am afraid of what he would do. I am afraid of getting involved. My heart sank. But the note continued. I am not a liar. I am ashamed that I closed my door on you. I have downloaded the video from my doorbell, as you asked, but I also wrote down what I saw with my own eyes. I heard the door slam against the wall. I heard that woman yell, "You ungrateful bitch!" I looked through my peephole. I saw her. Her face was red. I saw her hand, the one with the heavy purse, raised to strike you. You were blocking it. That is when I closed my door. I saw a hand raised. I heard a crash before that. I am so sorry. You can use this note if it helps you. God bless you. I held the note in my hand. It was corroboration. It was a second witness statement, confirming the assault, confirming the rage. It destroyed Marla's heartbroken victim narrative. I scanned the note. Evidence file sus08. Witness Ellery note, PDF. A new email had come in. Mr. Kellen, the building manager. He was clearly covering his bases. Ms. Johnston, this email is to formally confirm that our security log shows an official police report, number 774A, was filed from your unit at 06:07 a.m. on December 25th, citing a tenant assault by known party. The archive footage you requested has been secured and awaits official retrieval by the Cleveland Police Department. The timeline was now concrete, documented, and confirmed by a third party. I opened a new secure email to Noah Rivas. I attached the scanned note from Mrs. Ellery. I attached the confirmation from Mr. Kellen, and I attached the high-definition video file from Cole Mercer. Subject: Johnston. Kaylee. Evidence Packet 2. Urgent. Body: Mr. Rivas. Supplemental evidence. Please review file 007. It shows my father willfully blocking the security camera's view of the assault. This appears to be conspiracy. This time, he didn't email back. My phone rang less than 10 minutes later. It was his private number. Johnston. His voice was no longer just calm. It was sharp. It was energized. We got him. We got him. That video. That is not a man standing by. That is a man participating. He is actively, willfully shielding a crime in progress. The judge will incinerate him. So the temporary restraining order is guaranteed, I said. It wasn't a question. A trio? Johnston, we are past that. We are filing for a permanent restraining order against both of them, and we are attaching a civil suit for damages, harassment, and conspiracy to commit fraud. This video? This is the whole case. This is the leverage that makes them settle on our terms, immediately. He took a breath. Which brings me to my last task for you tonight. I need your declaration, your personal statement. I gave my report to the police officer yesterday. I said, I don't care about the police report, Noah said, his voice curt. That's a cop's summary. I want yours. I want the court to read it in the first person. I saw. I heard. I felt. Write down exactly what happened. From the moment you looked through the peephole to the moment you locked the deadbolt, the verbatim scene report. I want it raw. I want it factual. Email it to me tonight. Your appointment at the bank is at 9 a.m. Your appointment with me is at 10. We file at the Justice Center at 11. Okay, I said. One problem. My car is in the shop. I was planning on a rideshare. No, Noah said immediately. Absolutely not. Do not get in a car with a stranger. Not now. We don't know what they're capable of. Find someone you trust. A colleague. Someone from your unit. He hung up. Someone I trust. That was a short list. I picked up my phone and sent a text to Mara Keene, the senior analyst who worked in the cubicle next to me at Torchline. She was former Army intelligence. She understood protocol. Mara, I have a critical personal emergency. I need to be at the Hearth and Glen Bank at 9 a.m. tomorrow, and the Justice Center at 11 a.m. My car is dead. Can I borrow yours? Her reply came back in less than 30 seconds. No, I'm driving you. I'll pick you up at 8 a.m. sharp. That gives you plenty of time for both stops. Bring your go bag. A small knot of tension in my chest I didn't even know was there. It just dissolved. You don't have to do that. Shut up, Johnston, she replied. Torchline analysts don't leave people behind. See you at 8. I put the phone down. I had allies. I turned to my laptop, a new, blank document. I had to write the statement. I put my fingers on the keys. My name is Kaylee Johnston, on December 25th, at approximately 6 o'clock a.m. My hands started to shake. This wasn't data. This wasn't analysis. It was memory. The memory of the doorbell's sound, the smell of the hazelnut coffee mixing with the pine, the sickening tick of the glass cracking, the sound of Mrs. Ellery's deadbolt sliding shut. The worst part was my father's face, the emptiness in his eyes, the complete and total absence of protection. The tremor traveled from my hands up to my arms. I had to stop. I put my head in my hands. The cold, analytical wall I had built to survive the last 48 hours. It was cracking. I was back in the hallway. I was cornered. I took a breath. In through the nose. Hold for 4 seconds. Out through the mouth. A box breath. Another. Steel yourself. Johnston, report the facts. I put my hands back on the keyboard. The shaking hadn't stopped, but I typed through it. I wrote about the peephole. I wrote about Marla's exact words. I described the weight of the bag, the sting on my forearm. I described Peter's voice. Don't overdo it. And as I wrote, the shaking subsided. The words became clean, clinical, factual. The emotion was draining out of my fingertips and onto the page, leaving me cold and steady. I was no longer a victim. I was a witness. I was the primary source. I wrote 3 pages. I described locking the door, the finality of the high-security bolt. I described finding the key. I got to the end. I read it over. It was the truth. I added one final paragraph. My goal in this action is not retaliation. I am not seeking revenge. My father and my stepmother have made it clear through a coordinated campaign of digital fraud, identity theft, and physical violence that they will stop at nothing to take my property. I do not want them in jail. I want a legal boundary they are forbidden to cross. I want to be safe in my own home. I sent the file to Noah. His reply came in 10 minutes. Johnston, this is the strongest declaration I've ever read. Don't worry about revenge. Safety is the first step of justice. Safety is a locked door. Tomorrow, we go get the key. I closed the laptop. I walked to my bedroom. I set my alarm for 6 a.m. I lay down, still fully clothed, on top of the covers. I slept for 4 straight hours. It was the first real sleep I had gotten in months. It was black, dreamless, and absolute. I woke up before the alarm, in the blue-gray light, and I was no longer afraid. I was ready. Mara Keene's sedan was warm, quiet, and impeccably clean. It smelled like nothing. She was ex-Army, and she drove like it, with economical movements and a constant 360 scan of her surroundings. It was 8 a.m., Friday, December 27th. The city was emerging from its holiday stupor, the streets wet with melted snow, the sky a uniform, unforgiving gray. We didn't speak. There was no radio. The silence was a shared, comfortable utility. Here, she said, pulling to a smooth stop in a loading zone. The arcade, Hearth and Glen Financial. 10 minutes before my next meeting. I'll be at the curb, I said, unbuckling. I'll circle, she said, not looking at me, her eyes already on a delivery truck that was double parked. Call me when you're out. I'll be close. I got out. The air was cold and bit at my face. I walked under the massive sandstone arches of the old building, my footsteps echoing. The bank was marble, brass, and dark wood. It was built in a different century, for a different kind of money, and it was almost completely silent. A teller directed me to private vault services in the basement. The atmosphere changed as I descended the stairs. The warm, old-world lighting of the lobby was replaced by the flat, sterile hum of long-tube fluorescent bulbs. The air was cold, dry, and still. It smelled like paper and time. A woman who looked as old as the vault itself sat behind a thick pane of glass. Her nameplate read, Mrs. Hemlock. "I have a 9 a.m. appointment," I said, sliding my driver's license under the glass. "Kaylee Johnston. I'm here regarding Box 488B, Elaine Johnston." She looked at my license. She looked at me. She buzzed the lock. "You brought the documentation?" Her voice was a dry rustle. I passed her the folder, my mother's death certificate, the original will, which named me as executor, the tiny, ornate brass key. She examined every document with a slow, meticulous precision. She nodded once, a sharp, bird-like motion. "This way, Miss Johnston." She led me to the vault, a circular, massive steel door, intricate and beautiful, a relic of a time when security was an art. She retrieved her own key. She inserted it into one lock. She nodded at the second. I slid the tiny key from the ornament into the slot. It turned smoothly, with a sound I will never forget. It was not a small click. It was a deep, satisfying thunk, the sound of heavy tumblers, oiled and perfectly aligned, sliding into place. It was the sound of a 12-year-old secret finally opening. Mrs. Hemlock pulled out a long, narrow, silver box. It was heavier than I expected. "The private viewing room is number 3, she said, gesturing to a small, frosted glass door. "Please take all the time you require. Press the button when you are finished." She left me alone. The room was a small, white cube, a simple desk, a single chair, the same cold, humming light from the ceiling. It felt like a sterile lab. I placed the metal box on the desk. I took a breath. My hands were perfectly steady. I lifted the lid. The box wasn't full. There were no jewels, no gold bars, no stacks of cash. It was just paper. And a smell. The air in the room was sterile, but the air in the box was not. It was the faint, unmistakable scent of my mother's perfume. Jasmine and sandalwood, trapped in the fibers of the paper for 12 years. It hit me like a physical blow. I had to put my hand on the desk to steady myself. On top of the contents lay a single, cream-colored envelope. My name, Kaylee, was written on it in her strong, familiar script. I opened it. The letter was dated 2 weeks after her final diagnosis. "My dearest Kaylee, if you are reading this, I am gone, and you are finally on your own, just as we planned. I am so proud of the woman you are. I need you to listen to me now, as this is my last piece of advice, and it is the most important. Your father is not a bad man. He is a weak one, and weakness is a void that people like Marla Voss are born to fill. She will consume his resources, and when those are gone, she will consume his goodness. And when that is gone, she will come for you." My blood went cold. "This box is your protection," the letter continued. "I have left you very little money. I knew they would find a way to contest it, but I have left you proof. I have left you the truth. Do not let them make you feel guilty for the life you have built. Do not let them lay claim to your successes. You earned your apartment. You earned your career. You earned your peace. You do not owe anyone for living right. Your strength is your own. The ornament was the key. Now use what you find here. Protect yourself. Live well. I love you forever, Mom." My eyes were dry. This wasn't a time for tears. This was a final briefing. Beneath the letter was a single, folded legal document. Codicil to the last will and testament of Elaine Johnston. It was notarized, stamped, and looked terrifyingly official. I read the legalese. It was one single, surgical clause. "It is my express wish that one Venetian glass ornament, blue with gold filigree, be bequeathed directly and exclusively to my daughter, Kaylee Johnston. Furthermore, all associated memory keepsakes, tangible or otherwise, stored within or connected to said ornament, are hereby designated as her separate and private property, not to be considered part of the marital estate, nor subject to division or claim." She had done it, 12 years ago. She had legally severed the key, and by extension the box, from any claim my father or Marla could ever make. Marla's Facebook post, where she'd named the ornament as my mother's heirloom, had been a fatal mistake. She had publicly identified the very object she had no legal right to touch. At the very bottom of the box, there was one more item, a small, black USB flash drive, an old model. My laptop bag was on the floor. I pulled out my computer, plugged in the drive. One file, Det Recon EJ, MP4. I pressed play. The video was grainy, shot from the high, fixed angle of a webcam on a desktop computer. The timestamp in the corner confirmed it. 12 years ago, the month after her diagnosis. The setting was the kitchen of my childhood home. My father was on screen, pacing. He looked younger, but just as wrecked as he had on Christmas morning. My mother's voice, off camera, was quiet, but brittle as steel. "Tell me again. Peter, where is it?" "Elaine, please." He was rubbing his face, his hands shaking. "The margin calls, the gambling debts. I told you. It was from before I met you. I thought it was gone. But they found me. They were going to put a lien on the house, on our house." "You sold it," my mother stated. It wasn't a question. "I had to," he exploded. It was just money. I sold your grandmother's earrings. And the ring?" My mother's voice was a whisper. "My wedding ring." "I got $10,000 for them," he said, his voice breaking. "It's gone. It's paid. We're safe." The kitchen door opened. Marla Voss walked into the frame. She wasn't living with us then, but she was already an infection in the house. She put her hand on my father's shoulder, rubbing it, comforting him. "Peter, stop torturing yourself," she said, her voice dripping with the same false sympathy she used on Facebook. Then she looked directly into the camera, directly at my mother. "Elaine, it's just things. You're sick. You should be worried about your health, about your family, not about old jewelry. He did what he had to do to protect what's important." My mother's voice, no longer brittle, now cold as the vault. "Get out of my house, Marla." The video ended. I sat there, in that cold, white room, and I finally understood. This wasn't about my VA loan. This wasn't about me. It had never been about me. It was a pattern, a 12-year-old loop. Peter, weak and indebted. Marla, the enabler, the parasite, positioning herself as the protector. And my mother's assets, my mother's daughter's assets, as the collateral to be liquidated. My apartment was just the next wedding ring. They weren't trying to share it. They were trying to pawn it. I closed the laptop. My movements were precise. I used the bank's secure scanner in the corner of the room. I made certified copies of the letter and the codicil. I copied the video file to a new, encrypted thumb drive. I pressed the button for Mrs. Hemlock. I walked back to the main lobby. I went to a different teller, a young man who looked like he was just starting his career. "I need to open a new safe deposit box," I said. "The smallest one you have, in my name only." 10 minutes later, it was done. I placed the original letter, the original codicil, and the original USB drive into a new, waterproof envelope. I sealed it. I walked back into the vault. With the young teller this time, I placed the envelope into my new box, Box 714G. I walked out, carrying only the certified copies. The originals were safe. The chain of evidence was clean. I stepped out of the arcade. The air felt different. It was still cold, but the light was brighter. A few, perfect. Crystalline snowflakes were drifting down, disappearing on the dark, wet pavement. It was the first snow I had seen since the assault that didn't feel like part of the attack. It just felt clean. It felt like Christmas had finally, correctly, arrived. I saw a small gift shop across the street, its window full of post-holiday sales. Mara was at the curb, waiting. I held up a finger. 1 minute. I ran across the street. The bell on the door tinkled. I found them in a box. Simple. Silver. Elegant ornament hooks. Sturdy. Permanent. I bought one. And as I was paying, I saw it, on a shelf. A small dark wood music box. Plain. No decorations. I turned the key on the bottom. I opened the lid. A quiet, clear, simple melody played. It wasn't a carol. It was something hopeful. A small, ascending series of notes. I bought that too. I got back in the car. Mara just nodded and pulled into traffic. Change of plans, I said, texting Noah. I have the contents of the safe deposit box. It is critical evidence. It includes a codicil specific to the ornament and video proof of prior financial motivation. I have certified copies. His reply was instant. Do not come to the office. Go to the coffee shop on the corner of West 3rd. I'll be in the back booth. 10 minutes. I looked at Mara. Coffee shop? West 3rd? She nodded. Understood. I found him exactly where he said he'd be. A full cup of coffee untouched in front of him. He looked like he hadn't slept. I didn't say hello. I slid the thick manila envelope across the table. He opened it. He read my mother's letter first. His face was unreadable. Then he read the codicil. His eyebrows shot up. She was smart, he said, his voice low. Incredibly smart. This codicil. It severs the ornament, and anything in it, from the marital estate. It's legally untouchable. It's yours. Period. His claim. Marla's claim. It's void. There's a video, I said. On this drive, it gives you the motive. I handed him the encrypted USB. He plugged it into a small, ruggedized tablet, put in a single earbud, and pressed play. I watched his face. His jaw tightened. When the video got to the part with Marla's voice, it's just things. A small muscle in his cheek twitched. He finished. He unplugged the drive. He sat back, staring at me. Johnston, he said, his voice sharp. This is no longer a simple TRO. This isn't even just a harassment suit. This is a documented, multi-year conspiracy to commit financial fraud. He leaned forward. They weren't trying to share your apartment. They weren't offended by an ornament. They were trying to get what they believed was in that box. They've been trying to liquidate your mother's legacy for 12 years, and you are just the last, largest asset. He tapped the envelope. That key didn't just open a treasury. Johnston, it opened a purpose. It just gave us their motive. It gave us the why. And that, he said, a cold, thin smile touching his lips, is what we will use to bury them. Now, let's go to the Justice Center. We're filing. Noah snapped the manila envelope shut. The coffee shop meeting was over. The briefing was complete. The heist was on. Mara was waiting, engine running. She saw us exit, pulled into the lane, and we were in. The doors locking with a solid thud. Justice Center? Noah said. Mara just nodded. This was not a car. It was a transport. I was the asset. Mara was logistics. Noah was the operational commander. We drove in focused silence. Mara dropped us at the main steps. South parking garage, she said. Call when you're clear. She was gone before we hit the doors. The Justice Center was a cathedral of beige concrete, smelling of floor wax and desperation. We went straight to the clerk of courts. Noah was a machine. He bypassed the line and went to the new filings window. Ex parte petition for emergency relief, he said to the clerk, sliding the massive packet under the glass. Johnston versus Voss and Blake. He hadn't just filed for a temporary restraining order. He had filed a 5-count civil suit. Assault, conspiracy to commit fraud, intentional infliction of emotional distress, trespass, and identity theft. The emergency TRO was just the first immediate strike. Attached, Noah continued, his voice crisp, are the primary exhibits, Exhibit A, high-definition video of the assault and co-conspirators' intentional obstruction. Exhibit B, 911 audio recording. Exhibit C, building security logs and witness statement from Cole Mercer. Exhibit D, certified copy of the codicil of Elaine Johnston, proving chain of title. Exhibit E, transcript and video file of the co-conspirator Peter Blake admitting to prior financial malfeasance, establishing motive. Exhibit F, screenshots of public harassment from defendant Jennifer Voss. The clerk, who had been stamping papers with profound boredom, stopped. She looked up. She looked at the organized, labeled, terrifyingly complete evidence packet. "And one more," Noah said, sliding a second petition across. "Petition for immediate protection of unique personal property based on Exhibit D, the codicil, and Exhibit F, the defendant's own public admission of the keepsake's identity. We request the court order the ornament be declared inviolable, protected from seizure, damage, or sharing by the defendants." The clerk just nodded. She began to type. This was Phase 1, the breach. As she processed the filing, Noah stepped away and hit a number on his phone. His paralegal. "Execute," he said. Phase 2, the shockwave. An operation on multiple fronts at once. While we stood in the courthouse, a process server was dispatched to my father's house in Westlake, the formal complaint in hand. Simultaneously, the paralegal hit send on a certified email to Peter Blake's personal account. Subject: Notice of formal legal action and personal liability for conspiracy to commit trespass and fraud. Johnston v. Blake. The letter was cold. It detailed his actions, from the lockpick kit to his active obstruction in the high-definition video. It offered him one chance at mitigation, a conditional mediation. He had 48 hours to agree to a deposition against Marla. If he refused, or if he contacted her, the offer was void, and Noah would pursue full liability. We weren't just serving him, we were attempting to flip him. Next, the paralegal sent the filed, stamped petition to my credit union and the 3 bureaus. This was no longer a customer request. This was a court document. My bank responded in less than 15 minutes. A senior VP called Noah directly. My mortgage was locked. My identity was locked. The digital door was no longer just locked. It was welded shut. The final move, a formal preservation demand, a spoliation letter, was emailed to the legal counsel for Facebook's parent company. It listed the URLs for Marla's profile and her 2 specific posts. Her narrative was now a legal liability. If she deleted it, she would be committing a new crime. Destruction of evidence. The clerk at the counter handed Noah a receipt. "The file is with the magistrate. You can wait." "We will," Noah said. We sat on a hard, polished wooden bench. It was the longest 45 minutes of my life. I wasn't nervous. I was vibrating. This was the counter-assault. A bailiff came out. "Rivas." Noah stood. He went to a side door. He was gone for 3 minutes. He came back out. "It's done," he said. "The magistrate reviewed the video. She's granting the emergency order, but she's not just signing the TRO." "What did she do?" I asked. "She called it brazen. She's scheduled an emergency harassment hearing, December 30th, 10 a.m., Judge Hargreave. She's consolidating all our requests into one session. The TRO is in effect as of now. The process server is on his way. They'll be served before dinner tonight." Phase 3 was complete. The clock was set, December 30th. Mara picked us up. The ride back to the Rook Tower was just as silent, but this time, the silence was finished. I got back to my apartment. The deadbolt slid home. It felt, for the first time, like my own. My work was just beginning. Noah called as soon as I walked in. "Okay, Johnston, they've been served. Now they're going to scream. Expect it. Do not answer. Now, the hearing on the 30th. Judge Hargreave is not sentimental. She doesn't care about feelings. She cares about facts. We have to give her the timeline. Clean and simple. You're the analyst. You do it." "A slide deck," I said. "Exactly, as simple, brutal, factual, the timeline, the motive, the crime. Send it to me tonight." He confirmed that subpoenas had been issued. One for Cole Mercer, one for the Rook Tower's building management, compelling the handover of the original logs and video, and one for Mrs. Ellery's doorbell camera footage, which could be submitted via affidavit, sparing her the trauma of testifying. I opened my laptop. This I knew how to do. I chose the blankest template. Black text, white background. Slide 1. The timeline, a 4-point list. December 19th. Defendant Blake attempts unauthorized entry with lockpick kit. December 22nd. Defendant Blake attempts unauthorized access to plaintiff's bank account. December 23rd. Defendant Voss attempts fraudulent co-ownership filing. J. Voss. December 25th. Defendants commit assault, trespass, and conspiracy. Slide 2. The target, a single, high-resolution photo of the cracked blue ornament. Slide 3. The key, a photo of the small brass key next to the folded note. Slide 4. The motive, codicil. A direct quote from my mother's legal document. All associated memory keepsakes, tangible or otherwise, are hereby designated as her separate and private property, not to be considered part of the marital estate. Slide 5. The motive, conspiracy. A short, brutal transcript from the USB video. Peter Blake, I sold your wedding ring. I got $10,000 for them. Marla Voss. It's just things. He did what he had to do to protect what's important. I sent the file to Noah. As I did, an email from Torchline HR landed in my inbox. They had received the request from Noah's office. Attached was a letter on official Torchline letterhead, a glowing confirmation of my employment. It described my work as meticulous, insightful, and specifically noted my exemplary analytic capability and profound personal integrity. It was the perfect professional third-party rebuttal to Marla's unstable narrative. I saved it. I stood up. The apartment was dark. The sun had set. I walked to the entryway. I took the new, heavy-gauge silver hook I had bought. I picked up the cracked blue ornament. It was flawed, but the steel hook was strong. I hung it on a small, sturdy hook by my door. I took the new security camera I had bought, the one for inside my apartment, and I aimed it directly at the ornament, a silent dare. Then I took out the small, wooden music box. I placed it on the table. I turned the small key on the bottom. I opened the lid. The melody started. It was quiet, clear, measured. Silent Night. It wasn't a song of peace. It was a song of quiet determination. A song for the cold, dark, and the calculated calm before the final battle. My phone buzzed on the table. A text message. Noah. They're calling the office. Yelling. It's working. Sleep well. Johnston. A second text came through. A moment later. We aren't hunting people. We're locking doors. The legal filings, served on the evening of the 27th, were a depth charge. I spent the 28th in my apartment, waiting for the debris to surface. It didn't take long. The first piece was Peter. A call came from a no-caller ID number. I answered. I put the phone on my desk and pressed the record icon on my laptop's audio software. Hello? Kaylee. Thank God. Kaylee, listen to me. His voice was a panicked, high-pitched whisper. You have to stop this. Lawyers? A lawsuit? You're dragging your father into court? This is insane. This call is being recorded for use in that lawsuit. Peter, I said. My voice was flat, an echo in the quiet room. There was a sharp, strangled sound. He was crying, or trying to. A recording? What is wrong with you? I'm your father. I'm trying to fix this. Marla. She went too far. I know. I told her. She was just upset about the ornament, about your mother. She was emotional. She was emotional, I repeated. And you? I was trying to keep the peace, he wailed. This is just money. It's just stress. We're under a lot of pressure. You don't understand the finances. I think I do, I said. I let the silence stretch. Let him hang in it. Peter, does the phrase $10,000 mean anything to you? Silence, not a stressed silence, a dead silence. The sound of a connection freezing. What? He whispered. $10,000, I said, my voice cutting. The amount you got for my mother's wedding ring and her grandmother's earrings, the ones you sold to pay your gambling debts, the ones Marla said were just things. Does that sound familiar? The sound he made was not a word. It was a gasp, A sudden, violent intake of air. He hadn't known. He truly had no idea that my mother had documented his confession. He had believed that secret, the bedrock of his subservience to Marla, was buried with her. "How?" he stammered. "How? That's a lie. That's a horrible lie." "It's a video, Peter," I said. "A video of you, Marla, and the kitchen in the old house. I found it in the safe deposit box, the one she tried to get the key for when she assaulted me." He was completely broken. I could hear his breath rattling in his chest. He was a man who had just watched his entire defense evaporate. "The hearing is on December 30th, I said. "Your new lawyer will be provided with a copy." I hung up. Less than 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text message. It was Marla. She must have been sitting right next to him. She must have seen the blood drain from his face. She was trying a new tactic, not rage, not legal threats, feigned sincerity. "Kaylee," the text read, "I am just writing to say I am so sorry. My emotions got the better of me. Christmas is so hard, and I just want us to be a family. I have always loved you like a daughter. Please, let's not let these horrible lawyers ruin what your mother and father built. As a sign of good faith, I want to start fresh. Can I come by tomorrow and pick up a spare key? Just so I have one for New Year's Day? We can have dinner." It was breathtaking. The audacity, the pathological need to control. She was apologizing while simultaneously demanding the very thing that started the war: access, a key. I didn't reply. I took a screenshot, forwarded it to Noah with the subject: "Attempted contact 0915. His reply came back in 60 seconds. "She's trying to manufacture a defense, to prove to the court that this is a normal family dispute and that you're playing nice. She has no idea what's about to hit her. I've already sent a formal warning to her counsel, reminding him that any direct contact with our client is a violation of the pending order. Keep your phone on record. She just keeps digging." The next piece of debris was the smoking gun. It came from an unexpected front. My father's side of the family, a Facebook message from my Aunt Jean, his older sister. She had been silent since the Christmas post, and I had assumed she'd sided with them. Her message was short. "Kaylee, I have been quiet for too long. Your father is a coward, and his wife is a predator. I was willing to believe this was a family spat until she sent me this. She sent it 2 weeks ago, trying to get me on her side, to convince me you were the problem. I think you need to see it." Attached was a screenshot of a text message exchange from Marla. Marla: "Jean, I am so worried about Peter. His old debts are cropping up again, and he's a wreck." Marla, next text: "The only real asset we can leverage is that apartment Kaylee got with her VA loan. It's got so much equity." Marla, next text: "If we can just push her out, or convince her to sign a quitclaim deed, we can mortgage the apartment. It's the only way to save the family from his mistakes." Aunt Jean: "That sounds like fraud." Marla: "It's not fraud. Jean, it's family. We have to do what's necessary." I stared at the screen. She had put it in writing. The entire conspiracy, the motive, the financial desperation. Push her out. Mortgage the apartment. I saved the file. Evidence file 009, Marla motive chat, PNG. I sent it to Noah. This time, he called me. "She confessed," he said. His voice was electric. "She confessed the entire plot, in writing, to a third party who is now our witness. This is over. Johnston. This is a summary judgment. They won't even make it to a full hearing." The rest of the day, the front line collapsed. The allies I had, they firmed up. Mr. Kellen, the building manager, buzzed my apartment. He was formal, holding a large bound book. "Miss Johnston, per the subpoena, the original, hard copy of the building's security log for December 25th. Please sign here." I signed. I opened it. The entry was crisp, written in black ink. 0607, Cleveland PD, domestic assault, APT 1204, Tenant K, Johnston, parties, P, Blake, J. Voss. The time. It matched the 911 audio file to the second. Then, a call. An unknown number. But not no caller ID. Miss Johnston? The voice was frail, trembling, but resolute. This is Alara Ellery, from 12B. Mrs. Ellery, are you all right? I received the paper, the subpoena. My son-in-law. He is a very angry man. He saw it. He said horrible things. That I was a traitor. That I was getting involved in things that weren't my business. My heart sank. Mrs. Ellery, you don't have to. The note is enough. No, she said, and her voice suddenly firmed up. The tremble was gone. No, I am 72 years old. Miss Johnston, I have spent the last 12 years of my life being quiet because of angry men. I am done being afraid. I saw what I saw. I will be there on Monday. I will tell the judge. I will see you then. She hung up. The final piece arrived an hour later. An email from Cole Mercer. Subject, found it. Body. Miss Johnston, I was going through the raw server files again. The video is one thing, but the system also captures high-resolution still frames when the motion sensor is piqued by a sudden, fast movement. It captured one, the exact millisecond she lunged. I've attached it. I think you'll want to see this. I opened the attachment. It was not the blurry, chaotic video. It was a single, horribly clear photograph. It showed Marla in mid-lunge. Her face was not the heartbroken mask from Facebook. It was a contorted snarl of pure rage. Her arm, clutching the heavy bag, was a blur of motion at me. But the most important part was Peter. He was in the background. His arm was out. His body was positioned perfectly. A human shield. He was not looking at me. He was looking down the hall, directly at Cole's desk. He was actively, intentionally blocking the guard's line of sight. It was the entire case in a single frame. The assault, the accomplice, the conspiracy. I sent the image to Noah. He called me back, his voice low and cold. That's it, Johnston. That is the nail. We argued passive neglect. That picture is intentional endangerment. That is accomplice liability. He can't claim he was just watching. He was participating. The judge will crucify him. I disconnected the call. The hearing was tomorrow. I walked to my desk. I turned on my printer. The machine whirred to life. A low hum in the quiet apartment. I printed the screenshot of Marla's chat log with my aunt. I printed the high-resolution, full-color still frame of Peter shielding the assault. I printed the sworn affidavit from Mrs. Ellery, stating she would appear. I printed the scanned page from Mr. Kellen's logbook. My hands were steady. I took the 3-hole punch and pressed down. The sound was a sharp, satisfying click, click, click. I opened the black binder. I slid each new page into a clear plastic sleeve. I snapped them into the rings, one by one, behind the video transcripts and the codicil. Every page was a new piece of evidence. Every piece of evidence was a new line of defense. Every line of defense was a new needle, sharp and clean, completing the pattern. The story was finally, and completely, mine. The apartment was quiet. December 29th was a day of profound operational stillness. The storm was on the horizon, scheduled for 10 a.m. tomorrow. But today, there was only the cold, clear air in my apartment and the work of preparation. I spent the morning cleaning. It was a ritual. I was not just tidying, I was reclaiming my territory, scrubbing away the phantom residue of the invasion. I wiped down the entryway, the spot where my father had stood and watched. I polished the wood of the door, erasing the memory of Marla's fist hammering against it. I cleaned the kitchen, the counters, the floors, until the entire apartment smelled of lemon oil and bleach, not hazelnut coffee and artificial pine. In my bedroom, I opened my closet. Tucked in the back, in a garment bag, was my dress uniform, Air Force blue. I took it out, laid it on the bed. The wool was heavy, the weave precise. I took the iron and the starch, and I repressed the creases in the trousers, making them sharp enough to cut. I polished the brass buttons on the jacket. I aligned my ribbons. Air and Space Commendation, Global War on Terrorism Service, National Defense. This was not Marla's unstable veteran. This was not Peter's difficult daughter. This was Sergeant Kaylee Johnston. I was an avionics specialist. My job was to find the fault in the system, to isolate the bad wire, and to fix it so the pilot could fly home. I folded the uniform, a perfect, tight square, and placed it back in my closet. It was a reminder of my discipline. It was my armor. When the apartment was sterile, when everything was in its proper place, I went to a box of my mother's things. I pulled out a simple, silver frame, a picture of her, taken on the lake, years before she met him. She was smiling, her face turned toward a sun I couldn't see. I placed the frame on the windowsill, facing into the room. She was the objective. Her legacy was the asset I was protecting. With the physical space secured, I dealt with the mental. I picked up the phone and called Noah. He answered on the first ring. "Johnston, last-minute nerves?" "No," I said. I sat on the couch. The apartment still. The city gray outside the window. A tactical question. A post-operational question. "Go ahead." "When we win tomorrow, what do I do?" There was a pause. It was the first time I had asked a question he hadn't anticipated. I heard him exhale, a short, sharp breath. "You live," he said. His voice was no longer the sharp, legal tone. It was quiet, human. "That's the whole point. You're not fighting for revenge. You're not fighting for money. You're fighting for the right to lock your door, make a cup of coffee, and not be afraid. You're fighting for the right to a boring Tuesday. So you win. And then you go and have a boring Tuesday." "Live," I repeated. It sounded simple. It sounded like the most difficult, beautiful thing in the world. "See you at 10. Johnston," he said, and hung up. I sat with that word. Live. I went to my desk and opened a fresh notebook. I wrote a single sentence at the top of the page. A note to myself. A boundary is the answer. That was it. That was what this entire 5-day war had been about. I finally understood. A boundary wasn't an act of aggression, as Marla had always claimed. It wasn't an act of disrespect, as Peter had implied. It was a simple, non-negotiable definition of self. It was the answer to the question, where do I end and where do you begin? My mother had tried to teach me that with a key. Marla and Peter had forced me to learn it with a lawsuit. A boundary was not a wall. It was a line, drawn in the sand, clear and bright. I looked at the small, wooden music box on my desk. I had wound it last night. The simple, clear notes of Silent Night had been playing. A quiet loop of steel and wood. As I sat there, the spring mechanism wound down. The notes slowed, became deliberate, and then, with a final, gentle chime, stopped. The silence that followed was not an empty silence. It was not the tense, waiting quiet of Christmas morning. It was a new kind of quiet, the silence after the music. It was absolute. It was finished. That was peace. I stood and began to prepare my bag for the courthouse. The small disciplines, the things I could control. I packed a clean black binder. In it was my copy of the evidence, the high-definition still of Peter's obstruction, the chat logs of Marla's confession, the codicil. I packed a bottle of water, the seal unbroken. I packed 2 black ink pens, identical, 1 is none, 2 is 1. I packed a small, sealed tin of peppermint mints, not gum. Gum was for stress. Mints were for focus. I packed a portable battery bank, fully charged. It was my civilian go bag, ready for the operation. I picked up my phone. I sent a text message to Mara Keene. Hearing is at 10 a.m. I have the quarterly budget review presentation at 1 p.m. If I am detained, use slide deck B. The projections are in the shared folder. She was planning my life past the hearing. I had to as well. Her reply was immediate. Deck B is your worst work. Don't be late. Give them hell. A small smile touched my face. I had my logistics. I had my commander. I had my allies. I turned off my computer. The apartment was now dark. The sun long gone. The only light came from the street lamps below, casting long shadows. I walked to the entryway. The blue Venetian glass ornament was hanging by the door, suspended from its new, heavy-gauge steel hook. The single warm lamp in the living room caught the surface. The crack, the spiderweb fracture near the top, was illuminated. It wasn't ugly. It looked like a map. It was the map of the last 5 days. A scar, proving it had been tested, and it had held. The flaw had revealed the key. The attack had revealed the truth. It was more beautiful now, with its flaw, than it had ever been when it was perfect. My thoughts turned to them, to Peter and Marla. For the first time, the thought of them didn't bring a jolt of anger or a hollow ache of betrayal. It brought only clarity. My father, Peter, was not an evil man. He was not a monster. He was just a coward. He was a hollow man, defined only by the pressure of the people around him. He was weak, and I had spent my entire life believing weakness was a passive state, a failing that deserved pity. I was wrong. Weakness is an active force. Weakness is a choice. It is a vacuum that pulls in predators. His weakness, his moral cowardice, was the cracked foundation that had allowed Marla to rot the entire house. His weakness was the weapon that had injured me. And Marla. I saw her clearly, too. She was an addict. She was not addicted to alcohol or to gambling like my father. She was addicted to control. It was a desperate, consuming chemical need for her. She had to control his money, his narrative, and most of all, my mother's legacy. Her attack on me wasn't personal. I was just a resource she needed to control. And when I refused, she reacted like any addict denied a fix, with unthinking, destructive, primal rage. You cannot reason with an addict. You cannot negotiate with a void. You can only contain them. And that, I realized, was the final piece. I was not going to the courthouse tomorrow to hear an apology. An apology from them would be worthless. It would be just another lie, another tool of manipulation. I was not waiting for them to understand what they had done. I was not going to court for closure. I was going for a piece of paper. I was going to get a legal, state-sanctioned boundary that would be enforced by men with badges. I just needed the door to close. I just needed the lock to hold. The rest was just noise. I walked to my front door. I checked the high-security deadbolt. It was engaged. I checked the chain. It was secure. I was calm. I went to my bedroom. I did not check my phone again. I did not look at the binder. The preparation was complete. I got into bed and turned off the light. I fell asleep almost immediately. It was a deep, profound sleep. And for the first time since I had come home, I did not dream. The courtroom was not a place of high drama. It was a small, beige room on the 19th floor, smelling of stale coffee and industrial carpet cleaner. It was 10 a.m. on December 30th. The air was dry from the heating. I sat at the petitioner's table with Noah. Mara was in the second row, directly behind me, a silent, solid presence. 2 rows behind her sat Mrs. Elara Ellery, her back straight, her hands folded on her purse. At the respondents' table sat Marla, Peter, and a lawyer who looked like he had been pulled from a completely different, much cheaper lawsuit. He was sweating. Marla was vibrating with a furious, suppressed energy. Peter just stared at the wood grain of the table in front of him, his face the color of ash. Judge Hargreave entered. She was a small, sharp woman with no time for theatrics. "Good morning," she said, her voice cutting through the silence. "This is an emergency harassment hearing. Case Johnston versus Voss and Blake. I have read the complete filing. I have seen the primary exhibits. I find them compelling. Counsel for the respondent. Do you have any reason we should not proceed?" Marla's lawyer stood up, shuffling papers. "Your Honor, this is a profound misunderstanding, a family dispute that got overheated on a holiday. My clients are heartbroken. They are here to reconcile." Judge Hargreave held up one thin hand. "Stop. This court is not a family therapy session. I am not interested in heartbreak. I am interested in facts, Mr. Rivas, you have the floor. Show me the events. Noah stood. He was not a showman, he was a surgeon. Thank you. Your Honor, the events began on Christmas morning. At 6:07 a.m., I asked the court to first listen to Exhibit B, the 911 call placed by my client. He pressed a button on his laptop. First, the operator's voice, then mine, cold, clear, precise. My stepmother has just assaulted me in the hallway. Bye. Then, in the background, the audio file captured it perfectly. Marla's voice, not heartbroken, but a high-pitched, venomous shriek. Ungrateful. Tell them. You're lying. Marla flinched at the sound of her own voice. Peter sank lower in his chair. Thank you, Noah said, stopping the audio. Next, Exhibit A, the high-definition video from the hallway, secured by building staff. He played the video on the large screen, the swing of the bag, the impact, the shove. It was brutal. It was undeniable. And now, Noah said, Exhibit C, the official building security log. It shows a call to Cleveland police for tenant assault, logged at 6:07 a.m., the exact time of the 911 call. The events are confirmed. Objection, the lawyer said, standing weakly. This was a heated moment. My client, Mrs. Voss, was deeply hurt to see a precious family heirloom. Which brings us to Exhibit D, Noah cut in smoothly, as if the lawyer hadn't spoken. The last will and codicil of Elaine Johnston, my client's mother, certified from the Hearth and Glen vault. He projected the codicil. He highlighted the one, clean sentence. All associated memory keepsakes, tangible or otherwise, are hereby designated as her separate and private property, not to be considered part of the marital estate. And, Noah continued, Exhibit F, a public social media post from the defendant, Jennifer Voss, on Christmas Day. He projected Marla's own Facebook post. The heirloom she broke. It was her own mother's, the one single ornament Elaine left her. The defendant, in her own words, Noah said, publicly identified the exact item she had no legal right to. She then lied, claiming my client broke it. The video proves this was a fabrication. Marla's lawyer was pale. He had not seen this. And why? Your Honor, Noah said, his voice dropping. Would they be so desperate? Why this coordinated assault? Exhibit Y, a text message from the defendant, Jennifer Voss, to a third party, 2 weeks before the assault. He projected the chat log. If we can just push her out, we can mortgage the apartment. It's the only way to save the family from his mistakes. A gasp came from the back of the courtroom. Marla's lawyer put his head in his hands. This was not a family dispute, Noah said. This was a failed conspiracy to commit fraud, which escalated to a physical assault, and finally, the motive, Exhibit G, a video file, dated 12 years ago. He played it, the grainy kitchen, Peter's panicked confession. I sold your wedding ring. I got $10,000 for them. And Marla's cold, clear voice. It's just things. He did what he had to do to protect what's important. The courtroom was dead silent. The video ended. They were not after an ornament, Your Honor, Noah said. They were after the contents of the safe deposit box. They were attempting to finish a financial liquidation they began 12 years ago. When my client resisted, they assaulted her. He sat down. Judge Hargreave looked at the respondent's table. Counselor, she said, her voice dangerously quiet. You have anything to say that is not family misunderstanding? The lawyer stood. He looked at his notes. He looked at his clients. He had nothing. Your Honor, my clients, they admit emotions were high. They are willing to apologize. Apologize, Judge Hargreave repeated, as if the word was foreign. Mr. Rivas, you presented one final exhibit, the still frame. Yes, Your Honor, Noah said, standing. He projected the final image, the high-resolution still, Marla, face contorted in a snarl, bag swinging, and Peter, not passive, not watching, his body angled, his arm out, his eyes looking down the hall at the security desk. "This," Noah said, "is not a man keeping the peace. This is an accomplice. This is intentional endangerment. This is Mr. Blake, having failed to pick my client's lock, having failed to break into her bank account, now acting as a physical shield so his wife can commit a battery. He is not a witness. He is a co-conspirator." Peter made a small, choking sound. He was looking at the floor. He was defeated. The judge stared at the image for a long, cold 10 seconds. Then she looked at me. It was the first time she had addressed me directly. "Miss Johnston," she said, "I have heard Mr. Rivas. I see the facts. What do you want?" I stood. My voice was steady. It was the same voice I had used on the 911 call. "Your Honor, I am not seeking revenge. I don't want them in jail." I looked at my father. He refused to meet my gaze. "I served 8 years in the Air Force. All I wanted was to come home and use the loan I earned to have a safe, quiet life. On Christmas morning, I was attacked for hanging my mother's ornament. I just want it to stop. I want a safe Christmas, and I want my mother's memory to stop being used as bait." I sat down. Judge Hargreave looked at Peter and Marla. Her face was granite. "This is one of the most brazen, calculated, and frankly pathetic attempts at financial fraud I have ever seen in this courtroom," she said. "To you, Mr. Blake, you are a disgrace. You stood by and watched your co-conspirator assault your own daughter, and this court has seen clear evidence that you were an active participant in that. You are not just weak, you are a danger. To you, Mrs. Voss, your actions are predatory. You have lied to your family, you have lied on public record, and you have committed a battery, all in service of a transparent, greedy conspiracy." She raised her gavel. "The petition is granted, effective immediately. A 1-year no-contact restraining order is placed on Jennifer Voss. You will not come within 500 feet of Miss Johnston, her residence, or her place of employment. You will not contact her by any means, digital or otherwise. A formal warning for willful endangerment is placed on Peter Blake. You are not named in the restraining order, at your daughter's request, but you are on this court's radar. The court grants the petition to protect unique property. The ornament and its contents are the sole and separate property of Miss Johnston. Any attempt to claim, seize, or share it will be a violation of this order. Defendant Voss is hereby ordered to attend and complete a 26-week anger management course. And finally, the respondents will be liable for all of the petitioner's legal fees and court costs. A formal binding order is being sent to the petitioner's bank, barring any and all attempts to add co-owners to her property. This case is closed. We are adjourned." She struck the gavel. It was done. Marla was staring at her, her mouth open, in silent, apoplectic rage. Her lawyer was already packing his briefcase. Noah put his hand on my shoulder. "We're done." We stood. I walked past the respondents' table. I did not look at them. As I reached the door, I heard a voice. "Kaylee?" It was Peter. He was standing, his face a crumpled, tear-streaked ruin. "Kaylee, I'm sorry." The apology I had stopped waiting for. It landed with a soft, dull thud. It was a word, just a word. It didn't change the video. It didn't change the facts. I stopped. I looked at him. I gave him a single, small nod. It was not forgiveness. It was not an acceptance. It was just an acknowledgement, a final data point. Then I turned, and I walked out the door. Mara was waiting. She just raised an eyebrow. "Done?" "Done," I said. The ride back to the Rook Tower was quiet. New Year's Eve was approaching. The city felt different. It felt like mine. I went up to apartment 1204. I slid my key in the lock. I turned the deadbolt. The sound was clean. Final. I took the blue Venetian ornament from its box. I took the new steel hook I had bought. I found a place of honor, a small, secure hook on the wall of my living room, by the window, where the light could catch it. I hung it up. The crack was visible. It was a bright, shimmering line in the blue glass. It was beautiful. There was a soft knock. It was Mrs. Ellery. She was holding a small, white envelope. "Miss Johnston," she said, her voice clear. "I just wanted to say, you are very brave. We are all very proud of you." She handed me the card. "From all of us, the 12th floor." I opened it. Inside, it just said, "Welcome home. We wish you peace." It was signed by every resident on my floor. I closed the door. I had been fighting to be left alone, and in the end, I had found a community. My phone buzzed. A text from Noah. "Case closed, fees filed. Now go have that boring Tuesday." Another text. "Mara. By the way, Deck A was always better. You're buying the coffee on Monday." I laughed. A real, actual laugh. It felt strange in my chest. It was getting dark. Outside, the city was preparing for the new year. I could hear the distant test of fireworks, the sound of church bells from the cathedral downtown. I went to my desk. I opened my journal. I wrote a new, final entry. December 30th. The hearing is over. It is done. Justice is not revenge. It is not a feeling. Justice is a boundary. It's the right to close your door and the right to open it when you choose. I closed the journal. I drew the curtains. The apartment was warm. The city was breathing. And for the first time in a very long time, so was I. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'm so glad you were here with me. Please comment below and let me know where you're listening from so we can connect and share our thoughts. And if you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to Lila Revenge Stories, like this video, and give it an extra boost by hitting the hype button so more people can hear it.